Hello and welcome to Tech Talk on Galaxy with your favorite host, Mpumi Mpama. Now, printing has evolved over the years through different means up to a stage where technology became a part of it. The earliest known form of printing as applied to paper was woodblock printing, which appeared in China before 220 AD. Now, later developments in printing technology include the movable type invented by Bi-Sheng around 1040 AD, and a printing press invented by Gutenberg in the 15th century. Now, printing is a process for mass reproducing text and images using a master form or template. The earliest non-paper production or products involving printing include cylinder seals and objects such as Cyrus cylinder and the cylinders of Nabonidus. The technology of printing played a key role in the development of the Renaissance and the scientific revolution and laid the material basis for the modern knowledge-based economy and the spread of learning to the masses. Now, there's different types of printing. For example, there's woodblock printing, which was in 200 AD. Now, that's a technique for printing text, images, or patterns that was used widely throughout East Asia. There's offset printing, which was in 1875. Now, compared to woodblock printing, movable type page setting and printing using a press was faster and more durable. Also, the metal type pieces were steadier and lettering more uniform. Now, that was leading to typography and fonts. There's also movable type, now, which was in the year 1040. Now, it's the system of printing and typography using movable pieces of metal type. Now, they made by casting from matrices struck by letter punches. Movable type allowed for much more flexible processes than hand copying and block printing. Now, we are dealing with digital printing. By 2005, digital printing accounts for approximately 9% of the 45 trillion pages printed annually around the world. Printing at home, an office, or an engineering environment is subdivided into, for number one, small format, now up to ledger-sized paper sheets, as used in businesses and offices and libraries. There's also wide format, now that's up to 914 millimeters wide rolls of paper, as used in drafting and designing establishments. Some of the more common printing technologies are blueprint and related chemical technologies, daisy wheel, where preformed characters are applied individually. There's also dot matrix, now which produces arbitrary patterns of dots with an array of printing studs. We also have line printing now, where formed characters are applied to the paper by lines, to mention but a few. Now, in our show today, we have an expert in printing, Mr. Barry Muller, who is a business development executive for Tamani Printing Solutions. Joining me in studio is Mr. Barry Muller for Tamani Printing Solutions. Sir, you're welcome.
Welcome. Thanks very much. Pleasure to be here.
Would like to know, though, earlier on, before the break, I mentioned that there are different types of printing technologies, and I mentioned blueprint, daisy wheel, dot matrix, and line printing. Are those the only types?
So what you've described predominantly are impact. So we're dealing with predominantly impact printing in that kind of context.
So all of them are impact printing?
Predominantly, okay. Yeah. So you're sitting with a situation where there's an impact of a block,
yes,
which is covered with ink, onto a piece of paper.
I see.
Okay, so that's pretty much it.
Okay.
In terms of printing.
Okay.
So what you're sitting with in terms of pixelation now, so now you're sitting with a situation where a pixel is created on the paper, which is ink.
Yes.
And then you are dealing with toners, so a laser printing. So there's that's where we sit right now. So predominantly ink,
yes,
and laser.
Yes.
The exception to that, of course, is thermal printing, which is created through heat. and that's predominantly used in point of sales. So point of sales printers, going out to a restaurant and that.
Right.
Those bills are thermal
yes.
printers.
Okay.
But in the wider world of printing, you're dealing with a laser
Yes.
in terms of toners
Okay.
and ink
Yes.
in terms of pixels of ink that
Yeah.
are put onto a paper.
So you're saying in point of sales, that's the thermal printing that is being used when you get your receipt when you buy something.
Correct.
Okay.
That's a thermal printer. So it's the little
Yeah.
strip
Yes.
printer as opposed to an A4 sheet of paper.
Of course. Yeah. So what is printing though, according to you?
To me, printing hasn't changed predominantly.
Okay.
It's a mechanism of taking a sheet of paper,
Okay.
feeding it into a device mechanically,
Yeah.
putting an image on it, and pushing it out on the other side.
I see.
What has changed is we've brought color into this equation,
Right.
and we do it faster.
Okay.
So now all of a sudden it's not 1 page an hour that you're generating,
Yeah.
it's 100 pages a minute that
Okay.
you're generating.
Wow.
So the technology hasn't changed much in terms of printing.
Yes.
What has changed is the delivery and the efficiency of the delivery of the image that you have printed.
Yes, which makes it more convenient for companies as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but again, there are all kinds of debates from an organisational point of view. I don't want a 50-page per minute printer. I want a 70-page per minute printer.
Yeah.
I've always grappled with how you know the difference between a 50-page and
Of
a
course,
70-page
yeah.
per minute printer.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about fractions of a second,
Of course.
or fractions of a minute,
Yeah.
for that output. So unless
Yeah.
you're standing there with a stopwatch and
you're
counting,
counting.
you're really not going to know
Yeah.
what you have in terms of the speed, other than it costs you a lot more to buy a 70-page a minute printer as
course.
opposed to a 50-page a
Yeah.
minute printer.
I know we have given a bit of history to how printing has evolved over the years, but
Yes.
can you tell us more?
From a history point of view, I think that really the big game changer around printing was the advent of moving from analog devices, mechanical analog devices
Right.
that was taking a photograph or a original master,
Yes.
and creating one or many copies from one original,
Right, yes.
to digital, where every image is an original.
It's an original, yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And of course then the addition of a network card. So a printer on its own
Yes.
can't do anything.
Right.
Unless you have the ability to, so you could use a photocopier machine to make
Yes.
a copy of the device. But if it's not on the network, or it is not attached to a desktop or a laptop,
Yes.
it's nothing. That's
yeah.
why they call them unique printer drivers. On its own, it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Sure. So, according to you, where is printing going, though, Barry?
I think that the way we print is changing dramatically.
Okay.
I think that how much we print is going to change, especially in the commercial environment. So from a home point of view, I don't think that the home industry is well served, and I think that there are easier ways, and we can chat about that a little bit later.
Yes.
But I think we are going to see a lot of changes in printing. The principle of printing is not going to change.
Right. Okay.
But again, accept the fact that printing is with us. I always say the paperless office is as close as a paperless toilet. It's not going to happen in my lifetime, certainly not. In Japan they have paperless toilets, but that's the exception rather than the rule.
Sure. Okay. Now, let's talk about managed services. What is managed service? I know it includes monitoring, reporting, remote support, proactive support, and maintenance and improvements. Please tell us more. What is managed services?
So managed services, the precursor to managed services was outsourcing. So you had a situation where, look, I don't want to be in IT, I don't understand IT, I don't want to go and hire 500 people to run my IT or my information technology department. So what I will do is I will outsource to an IT company. So an IBM or a Compaq or an HP, I outsource my IT to an outside company.
Okay.
The concept of that is their core competence, and they will manage it much better than I can.
That's right. Okay.
The flip side to that is it is expensive to outsource. Although you believe that you would be reducing costs, it almost never happened.
Okay.
It almost never happened.
Yeah.
And then we moved to managed services. So managed services is far more a collaborative process.
Okay.
You know, I do what my core competence is, which is running my business.
Right.
So I own that side of the equation.
Yes.
And you as an IT company, you do what you do, which is your core competence, which is IT, providing information technology.
Yes.
So you do that. You can manage the switches and the hubs and the routers and the network. And I will manage my data.
Okay. Okay.
So that was managed services in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of managed services really started after Y2K. So Y2K had a big impact in people changing their minds about the value that IT actually adds.
Yes.
If you look at what we believed would happen at Y2K, if we didn't change all our systems, you know, people were saying banks are going to not be able to generate money because it's all IT related and the computers can't handle the changeover.
Okay.
And a lot of businesses said, but hang on a minute, you know, that's actually IT's fault, you know, that we got into the situation in the first place.
Yeah.
Which is not true, because the cost of storing data was enormous.
Yes, okay.
So Y2K made a big difference where business was saying, we're not prepared to outsource in its entirety IT. We need to own certain components of that. So we need to move more to a managed services, and we need to have direct control over the costs of IT.
But how many companies though go for that? Is it a lot of companies, or a lot of them are still skeptical in doing managed services?
I still think that 20 years on, there's still a lot of mistrust because from an IT point of view. So a lot of organizations have said, no, listen, hang on a minute, I will deal with my business, and you just deal with the price. So you're not entitled to make the kinds of margins that you were making in the past. So I will do that. You know, I will go out and go and get 20 prices. So managed services as a concept, I believe, is growing in terms of acceptance. There are a lot of people that saying, that's your core competence, that's your area of expertise, that's your speciality. I can still negotiate that price. But that's not core to my business. If I'm a brewery, my business is making beer.
That's right.
Not IT. But there are components of IT that are critical to my business. So I want to be involved. But the nuts and bolts, you handle.
So would I be correct, though, if I say that it brings peace of mind then to the company owner when that arrangement is made concerning the services?
Exactly, because as the business owner, I'm now not responsible for keeping up with the latest trends and the latest technology, and I've got to keep on chasing this. You know, it's technology is... People are making decisions at what they call the leading edge of technology. That costs. It's like a cell phone contract. It's exactly the same principle. That costs a lot of money. You know, to stay at the bleeding edge, never mind the leading edge of technology. And does it add value to my business? You know, it can add value to my
Yes.
business,
Yes.
but I'm not the guy that's going to monitor that and look after that.
That's true.
I want the IT company to do
it.
that.
Wow. Barry, how does this then translate to managed print services?
So conceptually, it's exactly the same.
Okay.
The only difference is that I firmly believe that printing as a component of technology is completely different. That's effectively what
Right.
it is.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with completely different issues in terms of a managed IT environment
Yes.
in the printing.
Okay.
The logistics are different.
Yeah.
So, a simple example. If I have a contract with a company around printing,
Yes.
normally, traditionally, that would include a cost per page. So I pay for a page printed,
Okay.
but you supply all of the components. So you supply me the toner, or the ink, or
Yes.
the cartridge
Right.
to do that printing.
Okay.
Now, if I'm starting to run out,
Yeah.
I can't put that cartridge on a truck and
Okay.
it'll be there sometime today. I'm not going to be able to print
Yeah.
until I get that cartridge.
Yeah.
So logistically and in terms of the certification and the management of that printing environment
Yeah.
is different.
Okay.
And it should stand on its own. That is why we had the advent of managed print services.
I see. Okay. But why? Why managed print services?
I think a lot of it had to do with what had happened historically. So, you know, there are people out there, Gartner as an example, so Gartner as a consulting firm,
Right.
has said that the cost of printing could be as much as 4 to 6% of a corporate's total revenue.
Wow.
So if you're a billion rand company,
Yeah.
you're talking about a lot of money
Yeah.
here. You know,
Yeah.
you're talking about hundreds of millions of rands potentially that is spent in printing.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that very, very few people understand the cost of printing because it's so hidden and diverse.
Okay.
In some cases, it's dealt with out of petty cash.
Yes,
In other
of course,
cases,
yeah.
you know, it's dealt with by the marketing department.
Yeah.
We've got our own requirements, so we'll do our own thing.
Okay.
Facilities deal with printing. IT deals with printing.
Yeah.
Office stationery deals with printing.
That's
The
true.
office stationery guys.
Yeah.
So nobody has a clear view of printing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where I came to realize that situation was working at SA Breweries at the time.
Yeah.
And we started working with a group of consultants to look at reducing cost.
I see.
And so we started out looking at things like raw materials, the cost of cans, the cost of hops and barley, and there were some fundamental changes in the way breweries did business around those questions.
Yeah.
And then the decision was taken, well, let's look at IT. Let's take IT as a cost on the income statement, and let's look at how we can reduce our costs.
Okay.
So we started out looking at it from a total cost of ownership point of view. So there was a model out there generated by Gartner that said if your IT environment costs X, you can reduce it by applying the principles of total cost of ownership by Y.
Oh.
And the difference between those two is what you can reduce your cost with.
Okay.
So I contacted them and I said to them, how do we do this? What are the methodologies to take it from X rand to Y rand?
Right.
How do we do that?
Yeah.
And they said, well, you know, we consultants, that's an operational issue.
Okay.
So we developed a model around total cost of ownership.
Yes.
So the total cost of ownership is, as a principle, is the cost of any product, goods or services from acquisition to disposal, including disposal.
Okay.
So that's the principle of total cost of ownership, and it deals with three things. consolidation
Right.
of your environment,
Yes.
standardization,
Right.
and ownership.
Okay.
Do you actually own that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we found that the biggest component, the biggest cost reduction out of the entire IT environment after we applied the issues of standardization was around printing. So purely by accident, I got into understanding the opportunities to reduce costs in a corporate environment. I could effectively, and I've said this, and I've challenged organizations, I've said to them, if you sign a contract with me, I will guarantee you, I will reduce your cost of printing by 25%.
Wow, that much?
By 25%.
Okay.
If I have full access to all of your costs. So I will build a cost model and say, this is what your actual cost of printing is.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And I can reduce it by 25%.
Wow. Wow.
By
That's big margin, though. That's a big margin, and that 25% can do more for the company.
Absolutely.
And it's a hidden cost, though, if you don't really investigate it.
Well, here's the thing. The vast majority, or most printing costs, in fact, all printing costs, are operating costs.
Okay.
So you take 25% out of the operating cost, it drops right down to the bottom line.
True.
So effectively it converts to profit.
It does, yeah. It does. Wow. But why should a business then look into managed print services, except for what we've just spoken, saving that 25%? Why should they?
If they don't, they're just going to continue doing nothing.
Right.
And you're never going to get that cost reduction.
Yeah.
You know, at least take the opportunity to look at your printing environment.
Yeah.
But looking at it to the extent of, I'm serious about this, I really want to be able to reduce my costs.
Yes.
If you do nothing, doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but then you're going to get nothing.
It's true.
You know,
Yeah.
I remember talking to one of the cellular phone companies, and I said to them, we could reduce your cost of printing.
Yeah.
And they said it wasn't material enough. You know, it was a potential reduction of 10 million rand, and that wasn't material enough at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand the cost of printing.
True. Sure. So, to the companies out there who are probably watching right now, you're actually saying that if you look into your printing, you'll discover there's a loophole right there that is costing you too much.
Yes.
And once you investigate and go into it and get this kind of services, you will save.
I'm saying to you that from a corporate point of view, the vast majority of organizations don't understand what printing is costing them.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to talk to one of the senior procurement executives or supply chain executives in a bank in South Africa.
Okay.
And he said to me at the time, he said, this is my cost per page. I signed that contract. And the cost per page, and I'll give you an arbitrary number, is 37 cents a page.
Wow.
That's what it costs me, all in, everything. And I said to him, if your cost per page is 37 cents,
right,
I can't help you. Then I'm wasting my time here because that's a brilliant deal.
Yeah.
But the caveat to that is, show me that your cost is 37 cents.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks later, we got together to discuss his cost, and he said to me, I was about to swear on my children's life that I was only paying 37 cents a page, and you will not believe the shock and horror when I went and looked at our actual cost of printing.
And it wasn't that 37 cents.
It was significantly more than that. It was literally double that.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
The perception of what somebody signs in terms of a contract and what the reality is are two fundamentally different things.
Yeah. But what you just said now, it tells how attention has not been given to printing. Because if you're just looking at it from face value, you can go ahead and just mention those 37 cents and say, no, it's not much that I'm losing, or no, I'm okay, I'm not losing anything on printing because printing has been done. through petty cash, through this and that. But the more you get into it, the more you get the analysis, you will find out that actually there's a big margin that needs to be fixed there.
So a lot of guys, a lot of organizations have signed contracts.
Okay.
Okay. And here's a strange thing. Some organizations out there don't even give you a copy of that contract because it's in their interest to know why do you want to look at that contract? Is there somebody else sniffing over there?
True. Security reasons.
Yeah, you know, so I'm not going to show you the contract. If you, the moment that you ask to see a copy of that contract, you will have 20 salespeople all over you saying, why do you want a copy of that contract? You know, and you can say, but I'm entitled to a copy of that contract.
Of course.
Because those contracts hide enormous flaws. Non-disclosure of the interest rate that you're paying.
Wow.
Non-disclosure of the actual cost of the device that you originally purchased. You know, it's all hidden in a rental agreement. So most organizations have these rental agreements. I spoke to one of the senior executives of one of the printing businesses, and he bragged to me 40% of all his revenue comes from what people don't print.
I see. Okay.
Because the charges are set at a level way above what customers think they print. On average, if I had to say to you, how many pages do you think you print? In a corporate environment, people will say, I print lots, because they're looking for a bigger printer,
of course.
Or they want a better printer. I print lots. The reality is, on average, in a month, the average admin person prints less than 1,000 pages a month.
Right. Wow. Okay.
The average individual at home will print less than 100 pages a month.
Of course.
You know, so that's like 10 or 5 pages a day. In that kind of environment. But you ask them, I print 20,000 pages.
Of course,
you know.
Because that's from face value.
Because my salesman told me that I print 20,000 pages a month.
But it hasn't been proven.
Exactly, and that's why I bought that machine.
Sure.
Because I print 20,000 pages. What evidence do you have?
No.
No, I don't have evidence, but he told me, and I like him. He's a good guy.
And you're paying too much now for that.
Absolutely.
But tell me though, Barry, why should individuals or companies not do this themselves?
So how would they do that themselves?
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't have, they have this perception that printing is cheap. You know, I pay 10 cents a page.
Right.
You know, because that's what the contract says.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of stuff that's hidden in there. You know, the marketing department, for argument's sake, says, I need a printer now because my requirement is different to everybody else, because I've got to have the highest possible quality for the marketing material.
Yes.
And they go down to Macro and buy a printer. You know, and that printer costs them R3 a page to print.
Sure.
Because the toners are so expensive. And the cartridges cost a lot of money.
That's right.
You can only print 100 pages with that cartridge. You know, in America, many years ago, there was, and there still is today, from a consumer point of view, if there's something that you don't want, you can return it.
Right.
So you can go out and you can buy a printer and a laptop, take it home, do your assignment quickly, your thesis,
take it back,
and say, I don't want it, and get your money back. And in the meantime, you've printed your whole thesis on this printer. As a result of that, most of the printing companies started putting half cartridges into the printers.
So that you
wouldn't be able to print your whole assignment on a half cartridge. So at least you would have to go and buy another cartridge.
That's right,
So, and that effectively is, people don't understand that cost. That's, so you can go and do it. And you can even do it on your own. What I would advise you is to get a specialist in there to go and do a number crunch exercise to tell you what your cost of printing is, not what you think it is, but what it really is. And that's the service that we've offered. You know, let us come in, and we'll do it on a consulting basis. There's no commitment. If you do that, and we give you the cost and how we can reduce that cost, then why would you want to try and do it yourself when you don't even know where to look for the costs?
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. Mr. Perry, thank you very much for joining us today. You've given us a pool of information when it comes to printing, and would like to appreciate the time you've given unto us, because you've just made some companies to save money now.
Well, I'm more than happy, and I'm absolutely convinced that, and it's a case that you can prove it.
Right.
You know, I'll show you that you can reduce your cost.
Yeah. Wow.
But there's a lot of money in there.
Thank you very much. Now, to our viewers at home, until next time, I would like you to stay tuned and stay safe and technology-wise. Until our next episode, we're going to be chatting to some interesting guests next week, so stay tuned and be with us next week. Until next time, goodbye.